Hi, welcome back. In this section, we will learn about different parts of a resume and what you should and should not include in those. Let me start by admitting that if you are making your resume for the first time, it may feel overwhelming. Making a good resume requires good amount of patience and great attention to detail. And unless you are a creative person who enjoys designing resumes, the whole process may feel a bit tiring and even boring to you. But the good news is that you have to make a great resume only once in your life. After that, you can always edit or add more details and use it for the rest of your career. So think of it as a one-time investment that will bear fruit for you for the rest of your career. Isn't that great? Alright, let's start and see what makes a great resume. On the screen, you see a template resume that we have made. Doesn't it look very neat and clean? Don't you want something similar for yourself? You do, right? Okay, let's learn what are the different things that go into making a resume this neat and clean. The first thing that you notice on this resume is the heading section. And what all does it contain? It contains your name, contact details such as your phone number and email ID, your portfolio link, which could be your GitHub portfolio, your Play Store account, your Behance portfolio, or even your LinkedIn profile. You may include your age and gender in the heading, though it's not mandatory. Some people do it, some people don't. Now, what are the things that you should keep in mind while making the heading section of your resume? First thing, you should always use a professional email ID such as firstname.lastname@gmail.com. It looks more professional and creates a good impression. So what is an example of an unprofessional email ID? Something like this: Mr_Cool2001@gmail.com. I'm sure most of us would have made at least one email ID like this at some point in our life. Please do not use it in your resume. It doesn't give a very good impression. Finally, do not include a photograph of yours in the heading section. Some students do it, but it's completely unnecessary and never required for, unless the company has specifically asked for it. Alright? Okay, let's look at what's next. Next thing is your education detail. And what does it contain? It contains all your education qualification from 10th standard onwards. You should include the time period, the name of the institute, name of the degree, and your academic performance. What are things that you should keep in mind while making your education section? Always mention the details in reverse chronological order. What do I mean by that? You should mention the most recent details first. For example, if you are pursuing a BTech, then mention your BTech degree at the top, your 12th afterwards, and followed by 10th standard. While mentioning about your degree academic performance, do not mention semester-wise academic performance. The aggregate CGPA or percentage is enough. Similarly, do not mention all the courses that you have studied in your degree program in your resume. If need be, make a separate section on relevant courses that you have studied which are relevant to the job profile that you are applying for, and mention only those courses. Do not mention all of them. Next up is internships or work experience, and this is the most important section of your resume. If you have done internships before, that's a practical proof in front of an employer that you have the skills and you can do the job, and which is why it is very important to do a good job of this section. So what all your internship section should include? It should include the name of the organization, the profile, and the time period for which you did the internship. It should also include a brief description of the actual work you did. Do not leave this blank, do not write a generic description, and do not write few words. Write a good description of the work you did. For example, don't simply say I built a website. Mention the technologies that you used, the frameworks that you used, and also the challenges you faced and the rewards you received. All of this put together gives a very good impression to the recruiter of the actual work that you may have done in the internship and what are the actual skills that you have. What are things that you should keep in mind in this section? Like education, this section can also be written in a reverse chronological order, which means you can mention the most recent internship front. But that's not always mandatory. You can always customize this section based on the profile of the internship or job that you're applying to. For example, if you have done a managerial internship and are applying to a managerial internship or a job again, then you would want to bring that internship at the top. But if you have done a technical internship also and are applying to a technical job or internship, then you would want to mention the technical internship first, and which is completely okay. As I said before, always give a good and specific description of the work you did during the internship. Do not leave it blank and do not give a generic description. Finally, do not make any grammatical or spelling mistakes in your internship description. With the amount of spell checker and Grammarly, etc. plugins that are available to you, there is absolutely no excuse why your resume should contain any grammatical mistakes or spelling mistakes. Similarly, avoid any technical or industry specific jargon in your resume. Make it simple for a normal person to read and understand. Next up is your projects. This is also an important section of your resume because most of the students, this is one way of demonstrating the work they have done independently and what they are capable of. This should include the title of your project, duration for which you did this project, and again a brief description which is specific and rich in details. If your project resulted in a publication or there's an online link to the project, please mention that. Next up is technical skills. In this section, you can mention specific skills such as programming languages, softwares, or skills like acting, writing that you may have and convey them to the employer. What you should not do is include things which are very common such as knowledge of Windows XP, or mention a personality trait such as I'm sincere, hardworking, team player, etc. This section is meant for specific skills only. Trainings and workshops. In general, companies give less weightage to trainings and workshops compared to your internships and projects. Nonetheless, these are important. Mention a short description, not more than 1 or 2 lines, along with the duration or time period when you did this internship or training. What you should definitely avoid is filling this section with too many irrelevant or short duration workshops which were only for a day or half a day. As I said before, this doesn't really add a lot of weight to your resume. You can also mention various online trainings and courses that you may have done in this section. Like internships or projects, you can mention these things in reverse chronological order or customize them as per the internship job requirement that you're applying to. Next up is awards and achievements. In this section, you can mention all the major achievements such as awards received, competitions won, or major positions of responsibilities that you may have handled, or any academic distinction that you may have received. This section is meant to highlight all the achievements of your life till date. But again, do not mention insignificant or achievements that are really old or of school days. A good way to test this is put yourself in the company's position and ask, would you really care about this achievement on an applicant's resume yourself? If the answer to that question is no, then do not mention that achievement of yours on the resume. Finally, the last section is additional information, which is meant to cover everything else that you want to convey to an employer but has not been covered in sections above. This will include things like your co-curricular extra activities that you may have participated in college or school. It may contain some minor positions of responsibilities that you may have handled but you did not mention in awards and achievement section before. It can also contain hobbies and interests. But again, keep this really short. You don't have to fill this information, you don't really have to write too many details if you don't think they add value to your resume. Alright, so with this we are done with all these different sections that a resume ideally should contain. But that's not all. There are few other important things that you should keep in mind while making your resume. First of all, always check your resume for spelling, typo and grammatical mistakes. If you are making your resume in Microsoft Word, it has an inbuilt spell checker that highlights the mistakes in your resume. There is absolutely no excuse for your resume to contain a spelling or grammatical mistake. It gives a very poor impression. I cannot emphasize this point enough. Please reread or proofread your resume before you send it to any company. With the penetration of smartphone and with so many of us being on WhatsApp and SMSing each other, the same language has also made its way into our professional communication such as resume or emails. But please do not use that language in writing your resume. Some students in India, and this is particular to India alone, also include names of their parents and their occupations in the resume. It's not really required. Nobody really asks for them. Nobody really cares about this information. I mentioned this before. Always be very specific while giving details. Saying I came first in a competition is not as effective as saying I came first in a competition which had 500 participants. Being specific with details gives companies a clear understanding of your potential and your achievement. Finally, again a problem which is particular to students in India alone. Many students at the end of their resume would write a statement like this: I hereby declare that the information provided in this resume is to the best of my knowledge and is truthful. You don't need to mention that. You don't need that section at all. It is assumed that everything that you list on your resume is true and you don't have to explicitly state that. It's not a court affidavit. Alright, so please avoid that. So that's all I had to cover in this section. Next up, you will see some really good templates that you can directly use to build your resume, as well as undergo a step-by-step process to make a resume for yourself using Internshala's online resume maker. Alright, good luck.